Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. U.S. President Barack Obama is hosting his fourth and final nuclear security summit here in Washington beginning Thursday. Delegations from 50 countries, including the African nations, Nigeria, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco and Gabon, are arriving for the conference that will focus in part on keeping nuclear-making materials out of the hands of terrorists or other individuals with malicious intentions. The U.S. says it's regrettable that Russia has decided not to participate in the summit. Experts say security gaps for nuclear materials remain for several reasons. There is no international framework to monitor them. Some countries are unwilling to open up supplies intended for commercial use, and some militaries have been unable to agree on how to deal with their nuclear material. Among the groups President Obama is expected to meet with during the summit, the International Atomic Energy Agency and Interpol, to discuss advancing nuclear security cooperation. Well, VOA White House correspondent Mary Alice Salinas has this preview of the two-day summit.
The Brussels terrorist attacks signal again how dangerous and far-reaching groups like the Islamic State have become. It's a threat that will be addressed during a special session of the Nuclear Security Summit in Washington.
It'll be focused on the broader threat, but obviously the prospect of ISIL getting access to any sort of nuclear material is something that must be avoided, and that will certainly be part of the conversation.
Since the attacks, Belgium has put armed guards at its nuclear facilities. But leaders are more worried about terrorists in countries like Pakistan getting their hands on nuclear materials and about North Korea's nuclear threats. The Nuclear Security Summit will be President Obama's fourth and final one. At previous sessions, nations have discussed how to lower the use of highly enriched uranium, secure vulnerable nuclear materials, and avert nuclear smuggling and terrorism.
These summits hopefully have really created a international regime that reinforces norms and practices among countries about safety, security, and operation.
But experts say key issues remain unresolved.
But the overall objective of securing the most vulnerable nuclear materials in 4 years, I think we can safely say a lot of progress has happened, but that goal, I don't think, has been achieved.
Much of the material remains in military stockpiles, say analysts, making it an especially thorny issue. Russia has declined to attend, saying these summits have played out their role.
That the Russian and Chinese governments have not bought into the Prague agenda and in fact are thinking about modernizing and expanding their nuclear arsenals at a pace quite different from anybody in the West.
With a new U.S. president due to take office in January, one open question is what's next?
Well, I certainly hope that the incoming president would understand that safeguarding loose nuclear materials around the globe is a top national security priority of the United States.
The White House says one goal of this summit will be to strengthen an international network of organizations to keep working on nuclear security around the globe. Mary Alice Salinas, VOA News, the White House.
Now, for more discussion on the nuclear conference, Africa 54's Esther Githui-Ewart joins us live from Capitol Hill. Now, Esther, we have mentioned that African countries are attending the summit. Many Africans do not associate African countries with nuclear energy. Tell us, why are they attending?
Well, there are a couple of countries in Africa that do have nuclear capability for energy purposes, Vincent, but the meeting here will be focusing on a broader perspective of keeping the world safe. And it will be one of the issues that we'll be looking at, the few African leaders that are invited into this summit, whether this will be a wake-up call for those that have nuclear capabilities in Africa for energy purposes to have discussions among those countries and within the continent to keep the nuclear materials and the radioactive materials away from the wrong hands. We know that we have the threat of Boko Haram in western region of Africa. We also have the threat of Al-Shabaab in the eastern part of the continent of Africa. And so those are discussions that are really key in making sure that the few countries that have nuclear capabilities are able to securely keep them safe from the wrong hands. Vincent.
And they may not have nuclear capability, but I suppose also they're looking at countries that can have material that can be used to develop nuclear weapons, right?
A key concern indeed, because if you think about the world being a global village today and the use of technology and even terrorists getting in their hands into it, we know that they've been using technology. They would be very happy to be able to get access to that. And Africa not being very secure in terms of that, that would be a serious threat. It would be a catastrophic occurrence if anything goes wrong within the African countries that do have nuclear energy. Like South Africa, Nigeria, we know that the Nigerian president is here also. We'll be looking into that and see whether they will give an African perspective on what they are doing and whether this really will push them to come together and discuss those threats.
Which presidents can we confirm have arrived or at least are coming?
We know that Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is already here. We know others are still coming in. We know that South Africa may be represented there because they do have nuclear facilities, the Safari nuclear plant in South Africa. We also know other countries are investigating whether they can use nuclear energy for, electricity purposes. So just a couple of them. Algeria, Gabon could be represented here. We know Algeria as well. So we'll be listening carefully to see what they come up with, especially as the conference begins today and continues into tomorrow, Friday.
And we'll follow up with you tomorrow, Esther. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent.
Well, Africa 54's Esther Githui-Ewart reporting live from Capitol Hill.